What's going on and welcome. We're officially in the home stretch of the last 3 episodes of this series. We only have a couple things left to do on the car before we get to head it over to the dyno to see what kind of numbers it puts down after all the modifications. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in the Alky kit and also the Nitrous kit. Alky is short for... Actually, Alky is the brand name of the alcohol injection system that we're going to be putting in. And why do we want to do alcohol?
With running our supercharger, our temps in the engine could be a little bit higher, so we're using this as a safety net to try and keep the temps down while we're under boost.
Let's get to it.
So with this Alky kit, we have a pump. The pump's the alcohol from the reservoir, which we're going to use the washer bottle in the car itself, so we won't have windshield washer fluid anymore. So it pumps it from there up through all this hose and stuff into this nozzle, which is going to go directly into the piping that goes right into the throttle body.
See, I told you, it felt heavier, did it not?
I think it could be brakes.
It was a lot easier to push before we modified it.
The plan is I'm going to take this out, because it's in my way, and then we'll figure it out. This is the tank we're going to use to put the alcohol in. So we want to put the pump somewhere in this general area. So I'm thinking about putting it somewhere right here, but we need to put it on a solid mounting surface. We might be able to make a bracket that come off of the bumper reinforcement bolts. So we have some angle iron left over from when we did the roll cage. We used the angle iron to kind of line up the holes to go through the rear seat delete. So let me grab a piece of that and see if we can make a bracket for this. All right. Let me see if I can find some nuts and bolts and get this to mount up inside the car. All right, let's see if it fits. That's in there nice and solid. All right, let me get these 2 10mm bolts out of the way and we'll see if we can make the least amount of mess possible. You think it's possible?
No.
Okay, as long as we're on the same page.
Flashback right now.
Got him. All right. Least amount of mess possible, right? We failed. Now we have to put in our low level indicator, and we have to put in our actual feed that goes up to the new Alky pump itself. So this goes directly in the bottom, and it'll go like that. And this needs to be about 1 inch from the bottom in order for it to float up and down. So it will be like that. I'd like to put it here, but not enough space. So it looks like I'm going to end up, you put it over here on the side, put it here. It looks like the side's going to be the better spot for it, just because it has the most room to get in and out of there. So. All right. Let's go put this back in the car and start running our lines. it fits. So let's get this line ran up inside so that way we can see where we're going to place our nozzle and go from there. Put it in this spot. And this can come around. We can then have the nozzle go anywhere on this intake pipe here. So we gotta figure out which way we want this to go. If we want to have this valve come down here a little bit so it's out of sight, do that, and that way we only have just the steel braided line. Rip the ground out before I put it back on. Right here. So we have that line ran up there. That filter is secure up top. And we can start looking into what we have to do for our electrical connections. And then we can put the belly pan back on and wire the inside of the car. Locate a hole to go through the firewall to get these wires into the vehicle itself. If not, we're going to drill a hole and make our own. Hole yellow. Let me know when it's tight.
Tight.
And here we have it inside the car. Surprisingly easy. Good enough. And this. Do we want it to face that way? So when you look back, instead of this way? I decided that the two indicator lights, you want them to be pretty visible. We didn't want them over at the gauges directly in our face, but we still want to be able to see them. So right here on this little panel that's a shaker, we're gonna take that out and we're gonna put the two LEDs in that little panel there so that it's still visible. Alright, let's go put this back in the car. There we go. That doesn't work. Alright, here we go. Ooh. Oh, that insulation. We don't need this, do we? Look at that. At least
Race car doesn't need no insulation.
there's a hole. The last thing we have to hook up is the signal wire, which goes over here to the mass airflow sensor. There's actually a harness that goes up underneath this cowl, so we're going to take this cowl off, run this wire over, make the connections, and our Alky injection system is installed. Okay. Our Alky kit is now installed. We're going to go ahead and start moving on to the Nitrous kit. I'm going to leave everything open the way it is, just in case we do need to pull other lines and everything else when we get into that. When we're all done, I'll button everything all back up, get the car back on the ground, and go see what we got to do with the dyno. That's it for today, and we'll pick back up tomorrow.
Good morning and welcome to the final day of installation of our 2017 Mustang build series. Now the only thing we have left to put on the car before we can send it over to the dyno to get tuned is the Nitrous kit. So we're not going to waste any time and we're going to go ahead and get started.
What's the plan?
Well, I was just sitting here kind of looking at where we're going to put the solenoids to activate the Nitrous itself. And it looks like I'm going to end up putting the fuel solenoid over here. That way we're in pretty good distance from the fuel line itself. And the nitrous and purge solenoids, I believe I'm going to put down here underneath the air filter just to kind of keep them out of the way and as clean as possible. Once we get them done, we're going to put the single nozzle here into the intake, and then we have a line that we're going to run back to the tank in order to tie into the tank itself. Once we get the tank in, we'll be able to put the pressure sensor for the gauge, and we'll be able to see what kind of pressure the tank and the system has when we're all done.
Get it all buttoned up and ready to go.
That's it. Alright, so our airbox is back in place. We have our solenoids mounted. We're going to start running the lines so that we can get up to the fuel, and then over to our nozzle up in the intake. We'll drill the intake. We'll go ahead and start running the line to the back and wire up our solenoids. We have this real nice heated bottle mount that we got with the kit. So it has this plate and a couple brackets and stuff, and real nice billet aluminum piece. And I was looking at it, and with the black bottle and the silver, I just didn't really go with the build of the car, so I decided that I want to get it powder coated. I figured the bronze color like we did with the wheels and the roll cage would be a good color to do it. I just talked to the powder coater and he said if I can get it to him right now, he should be able to have them powder coated today, so we can actually go ahead and finish putting this in the cars today and not lose any time and still have this done. So we're gonna go ahead and take all these bracket pieces and stuff for the bottom mount, run over the powder coater, get that dropped off, come back and we'll start running the lines that we need to run over for the solenoids. I dropped the nitrous bottle mounting bracket pieces off a powder coat so that we can get that back later this afternoon so we can finish the install. right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark out where we're going to put the nitrous nozzle into the intake. We're going to drill that hole, get this nozzle installed, and continue on with this install. We're going to roughly, I'm thinking something like that. All right. Let's drill this out. Okay, that should do it. I think we're ready to put this back in the car. Okay, so we have our nitrous here. Under here, we have our fuel line, which we're gonna run this way. We have this line. Utilize this factory mount here, and this is gonna come right up to this adapter right there. So in the kit, we have this fuel line adapter. We already actually installed the fuel line adapter. We currently sell a very similar version ourselves, and it has a port on here. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna take the 90-degree fitting that came with the kit, and we're gonna utilize that in our adapter we already currently have. So our lines are ran to the solenoids. When we're all done, we'll go back and double check, make sure everything's tight. But for the time being, that's basically what we gotta look at for there. We have to wire up our solenoid still, and we gotta run the supply line back to the back. I went ahead and put the front wheel back on. We have to get this thing on the lift in order to run the line from the tank up to the solenoid. Left the inner wheel well out because we are going to have to run some wires from the solenoids into the cab of the car. So I'm just getting it onto the lift, and we're going to continue working. We have it roughly through the car. Let's lower it back down, look in the trunk, see what's gonna come through, button up everything, and then start wiring up the solenoids. All right, let's see if we can get through any of these grommets first, and then go with the best one. There we go. Grommet is installed. We got plenty of stuff. Got the line right here. Look at that. Okay.
That might be the fastest this Mustang's ever gone.
Maybe. We got the bracket back to powder coat already, so we're going to go ahead and get this thing unwrapped, assembled. We're gonna get the bracket put into the trunk. That way we can wire up the heater and get everything ran over to the switch at once. That way we're not doing wiring basically twice. So I'm gonna get this unwrapped and get this going. All right, there's our heated bottle bracket. That's just color matched to the wheels and the roll cage. You can see how it's going to fit inside the car. So when we were mocking up everything earlier when we were ordering stuff, I noticed that there's 4 holes into the floor of the trunk, which was for like a subwoofer add-on or something from the factory, something like that. So we decided that that would be a good spot to mount the bottle. Unfortunately, the bottle itself, the bracket itself, is too small to fit where those holes are. So I came up with the idea I'm going to actually put an adapter plate into the floor in order to be able to mount this to the adapter plate. Now that all the holes are drilled, we're going to go ahead and put these brackets in the car. I have these little spacers that are actually going to end up going below the plate. That way there's some space so that the bolts that hold the bracket in don't make contact with the floor. I already ran these through the car. This red one's going directly from the positive side of the battery so we can feed our relay. And this green one's going into the cab of the car so that we can run it over to the actual switch to turn on and off the heater itself. So I've ran them through the car already. We're gonna get them hooked up to our relay, which we're gonna mount right up here on this wall. And then we're gonna ground it right here on this post as well. That way we can get all our circuits hooked up. Alright, I'll get some wire ties, we'll clean that up and start putting the trunk hole back together. This is for the quick disconnect we added for the heater circuit. And up here, I'm gonna put a hole for that sensor wire to come through. Disconnect right here. Can't be stuck on the side of the road with your race car without an air compressor. This is going back in. She goes like this. So we have our adapter that came with the kit. It has 2 ports on it. We're going to use one for the pressure switch that we need for the heater, and we're going to use one for the pressure switch for our sensor. That way we can see both of the things that we need to see. We're going to thread this onto the bottle. Go put this in the car. All right. Our nitrous bottle is mounted in the trunk. Everything's back together. We just have to finish the wiring up front. And we can see what this thing will do. So we have this pretty fancy switch which is designed specifically to fit in the sunglass holder. So that's why we decided to run everything up to there. Alright, not too bad. Here we have a dual nozzle kit for our purge solenoid. We're gonna actually run a flex line that goes from here up, and we're gonna make it so that we can have the purge come out of the vents on the hood. We got the flex hose, that way we can open and close the hood and it's not gonna damage. So on the table. Washer line removed. All right, purge line's installed. All right, bottle's on. Let's hit the button. It works.
System's done.
Nitrous system is installed.
All right, that is going to be it for episode 9. The Alky kit and the Nitrous kit are installed on the car, and for the first time in a few months, the car is completely back together. We don't have anything left to install. So what's going to happen now is we're going to take the car over to the dyno, see what kind of numbers it can lay down. What's probably going to happen is we're going to get the car dialed in first before we start spraying the nitrous, make sure everything's safe. So if you're not already subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We don't want you to miss out on seeing what kind of numbers this thing lays down, and we will see you on the next one.